Yo, what's good, everyone? Oh, with the had to clear my throat. It's your boy Steve, real name, no gimmicks. It's Tuesday, so that means we're back for another episode of Conversations That Matter with people that have great conversations. I'm waiting for my guests to join me. They're going to click that link to jump into the green room in any second, and I'll bring them on up. And as usual, I want to thank anyone that's here watching for your time. Oh, I see my guest. Let me go ahead and get her in here. And boom.
Hi.
Hello, how are you?
Good. How are you? Oh my
I,
gosh.
I was just doing your rollout. Everyone, let me introduce you to Spelunker, adventurer, advocate, amazing house dancer, spirit au natural, my good friend Gillian. How are you, ma'am?
Good. How are you? So good to see you.
It's good to see you as well. Thank you for agreeing to do this. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's a little out of character for me. So I think you caught me at a good moment.
I I figured I did, and I was like, am I taking advantage of a friendship right now? No, yes,
No, that's
yes, I
fine. I just think maybe you took advantage of the moment and the mood that I was in, going, yeah, that's great. And now I'm going, oh dear, what have I done?
So, let me give you a little background on the show, Jillian. So I started the show maybe a year ago, right?
Mhm.
Just talking to interesting people, content creators, people that I've had the pleasure of sharing time with throughout my life, bringing them on, sharing their life story, their journey, their passions, and it's something that I think I remember when we were kids. It was something I always talked about. Like, I wish there was a way I could sit down and talk to people, and somehow,
Some way.
some way, continue to do this.
I
Well,
love it.
I haven't monetized it yet fully, but I'm grateful to do this. Why don't we start here, my good friend? First, how are you?
Uh, Busy. But aren't we all? Aren't we all?
Yes,
It's
yes.
just, I started this new job back in November, and then trying to get my daughter home from college, which is a whole separate topic. And, I'm heading on a big trip next week to Nepal, and I'm
Oh,
going
wow.
there for the first time and climbing a really big mountain. So it's just the convergence of a lot of things at the
Happening
moment.
at once. I cannot believe that I'm about to say this. I'm not going to say the young lady's name, but I cannot believe that baby, who is still a small child, that said "yo" from the crib. I remember hearing that for the first time when we were all visiting with you one day. Is now in college. Congratulations to
We
you.
made it. We made it. I always joke that it's a miracle my daughter and my plants are alive and my dog. So, yes. But she's awesome. Thank you for that. Yeah, she is still that baby in the crib for me.
Yeah.
So it's hard to look at her and she thinks she knows everything, as teenagers do, but of course she does. And to me, she's just that baby going yo and dropping it like it's hot in her in her little onesie.
It's first year student or
Second, it's her second year. Yeah,
oh my goodness, I
I
cannot
know,
believe
I
that.
know,
It's
I know.
funny. I have three little bambinos of my own, and I let them know right out the gate. I'm like, I know what ilk you're cut from. You're my children, so you probably think you have a lot of opinions, and you think you have the right to
No.
share these opinions. I want you to know the buck stop here. Your opinions don't count. You're 7, 5, and 3. I don't want to hear anything you have to say except for yes, mom, yes, dad. I'm getting you.
No, you will not be so lucky, right? What is it? Dogs and children are only good as their owners. So
I spent the other morning chasing my poor dog around, who I should walk more, but we live upstate, and the weather doesn't permit for you to do what you do in the city. You got nice buildings to protect you from certain things. When you're walking around upstate with your dog, you feel all of the wind. And so we finally started going on our walks again, and yeah, she ran away, and I was like, what an amazing animal you are. You get human food, you get premium dog food, you have all the toys you can destroy, and you dare leave the solace and beauty of this home that we've provided for you. I'm gonna treat my kids the same way. I'll see you in an hour.
So my dog's similar, and I think we raise them confidently that they think they can make it out there in the world or something. That's my working theory. I don't think it's true, but that's kind of where I'm at because my dog does the same and I can't figure it out. It's like, what have I not given you?
What didn't I do for
Do
you?
you want a kidney?
All right, so let's start here, Jillian. We met when we were kids.
Mm-hmm. Oh my
I
gosh,
bet-
my daughter's age. Or
yes,
almost, yeah, 20,
yeah,
right? 20.
yep. I think
Cool.
I think I was 19. You were 20, and
Yeah.
I cannot recall where we met. I remember it was at an amazing party, but if you remember, you can go ahead and say.
I am so glad you asked. I am so glad you asked because I thought about
regret
that.
asking this?
No, you're not. You're actually going to really be happy that you asked this, and you
Okay.
might just shut down the show after it because I have a great answer. And that'll be to my benefit, of course. So it was a party. It was Brass Monkey at Roseland Ballroom.
That's right.
And I had just met Jimmy,
Yeah.
And by met, I meant like I went up to him and I'm like, hey, I saw you at Suffolk's Jungle in Philadelphia.
Right.
And he's like, you like jungle? I said, yeah. So he's like, come with me. So we go to the basement. And I see these two tall dudes like dancing. There's like strings everywhere, and there's backpacks, and there's like hoodies, and it's just twirling around. And it was like incredible. It was like I see like vectors and math and like just beauty. It was like a dream. And I don't say that lightly.
Touche.
No, it really was. And when I was thinking about this story, that word just popped into me, not ironically, and no pun intended. Like it really was. And then you and the other person, which I can only assume was Sully, stopped dancing. Mm-hmm. And then I kind of like started to do my little thing. I don't know. I was new to the environment at the time. And I started doing my little thing, and you stopped and you held your backpack, and your hair was, I think, blonde at the time. It was like the tips were blonde, and it was,
everywhere.
And you come up to me and go, you're a good dancer, yo. And that like, I was like, me? What? I was like floored and like enamored and like, what is this place? Who are you? I must know more. So like, you were there at the burgeoning of my like love affair with New York, and part of the story as to why I moved to New York in the first place. It was just moments like that got me here. So thank you.
Bro, no, I do remember that now. And actually, let me just put a little bit more on it. Brass Monkey was probably my first real party, right? And I had just gotten used to like dancing and like in that style. But I've been, I love to dance anyway. But I remember you did a backflip. And that's what stopped Sully and I, because it was like everyone was dancing. And I was like, oh, next level. And I do remember going over. Here's something I remember most about our party days, right? So I assumed that you were just like a junglist, and I was like, I had that loose truce. I would go everywhere, from room to room. But you were one of those people that danced no matter what the music was, except for hardcore. And I remember one party you were standing next to me. You were like, I just don't get it, Dream. I just don't get it. And I'm like, what's wrong? And you're just like, you like skirted off. You're like, I'm out of here.
I didn't understand. And then I went to Massachusetts and heard one happy hardcore song that I liked and I was like, oh, okay, I think I kind of get this now. But that was it. But no, that's true. I would still. I can't say that much has changed.
I listened to some of my old hardcore stuff, and I was like, man, I must have been really going through a phase. This music made so much.
I think you're upset about a couple things. If I had to guess.
Well, wait, enough about me. Let's start over. So, Gillian, tell us. Yes.
I QED. I'm done. I told my story.
Let's start. Where are you from originally? Where'd you come up? And how did you end up in New York?
Well, I told you part of it, but yeah, we'll back it up. So I was actually born in Scotland.
Okay.
My dad was getting his PhD at the University of Aberdeen, and I came along at the end. And then we moved all around, including California. We went to Costa Rica, Dominican Republic, back to Chicago, back to Costa Rica, England, Costa Rica, England again, Chicago, and then I went to school in Boston, and I've been in Brooklyn pretty much ever since I graduated college.
No,
And
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Brass Monkey was my last year of college. So I started coming down like my last semester. And I was like, I've got to move here. And I graduated a year early and altered my course so I could come to New York because of things like Brass Monkey.
What? So wait, that wasn't your first rave, was it?
It was my second.
What was the first one?
Well, it was Sweatpants Jungle. No, wait. I think I had been to a few in Chicago, but those don't count, right?
Why not?
I don't know. I guess they do. They were pretty legit. They were like pretty legit warehouses. It wasn't anything like Roseland Ballroom. They were like legit warehouses, you know?
We're so posh in New York. It's like, get your ticket and come to
Roseland. No, there was there was none of that. There were like people piling into the backs of trucks and like, you know, yes. You couldn't see through like 3/4 of it. It was that kind of, so I guess those do kind of count. But yeah, no, that was my second kind of East Coast one. Yeah.
So let me ask you this question, because I always find this interesting, right? Like my love affair with the music started long before raving, right? And all that stuff. The first song that I can recollect that really pulled me into it, that I can clearly remember, was Robert Miles' Children, one of the most cheesy trance songs ever made. You've heard it at the end of Mortal Kombat.
I don't care what you, it's a great song.
It's beautiful. It's at the end of Mortal Kombat. Hackers. I remember just watching Hackers when I was a kid, and I'm like, that's where I'm going to be one day, hacking the mainframe with the woman I love standing.
Listening to her.
What can you recall? What was the song that did it for you?
You know, I don't know what song. But I think when I heard Jungle at Sutpen's Jungle in Philly, that was it for me. And then the other stuff kind of came along as a necessary evil. I was like, where's the jungle? And then, you know, and then you got thrown into other things. But I'm going to tell you another funny story. Like my first kind of fascination with that kind of environment, let's call it, was, do you remember the movie Kids?
Of course.
So my friend and I in England snuck into the movie theater because I think I was too young. She was of age. I was too young. So we snuck in and we saw it. And there's that scene where she goes through what I think is the tunnel.
Yep.
And I thought, what is that place? And that is what I want to do with my life. So that was kind of my first exposure to it, you know, and it kind of just sat there and it rolled around until, you know, fast forward, you know, 4 years later, where I started coming to parties because of some guy, you know, always is, right?
Isn't that always the way? It's some guy, some girl, they're all from the same family plan. You know, the crazy thing about that, Jill, is that you, to us, from our vantage point, right, from Sully, myself, and the other guys that I hung out with, you were so well traveled by the time we met you. I had assumed that you had been partying, and I mean this is like the most classy way possible. Like you had already been going to raves. Like I just remember that you were very sophisticated in your approach to clubbing and stuff like that. Meanwhile, I'm like, I gotta get in this place by all costs. And you're like, I'll just loan you $20. There's no need to climb down the rafters or whatever the plan is. But
which we did to get into Limelight on Sundays.
Yo, I thought I was the only person in Limelight and Club Speed. No one else recalls, besides a few other people, that you could actually climb into these places.
Yeah, no, we would go to the side. We would like climb over and then like open the door, you know, because they left the door open.
Yeah, I remember one day I seen Hour running out that back door, and I was like, oh, I guess that's a burn. No one's going in.
Yeah. Yeah, it was short-lived, right? It was short-lived.
let me circle back to the kids interaction, because I had a moment like that. Oddly enough, I also lived in Chicago, and I was living on the South Side. And when that movie dropped, I wasn't even in New York. I was living on 77th and Phillips, and everyone was asking me questions about this movie Kids, and they knew I was from New York. They're like, "Is it like this?" And I'm like, yeah, to the best of my recollection, you know, the few times I'd been down to the Village, and at that point it would have been with my mom, I was like, yeah, a bunch of street kids. And I remember the scene you're talking about when she's in the tunnel, and it also had that impact on me. I was just like, whoa, what is happening here? And it's funny now as an adult, I know that was the Party Monster type of era when the kids before, the generation prior to us running around. Have you ever talked to anyone about
running around. That's
Yes.
appropriate.
Have you ever talked to anyone about our era of partying, like, and trying
Do
to
I ever
describe?
talk to anyone?
Yeah, not anyone we knew, but like, have you ever tried to describe it to someone?
Oh,
Like,
someone who doesn't know. Okay.
yeah.
No. No. I think some things are best left in the shadows. Okay, no. I take that back. A little bit here and there.
Okay.
The current person that I'm with, current guy I'm dating, I've here and there, but to like actually try to explain, I'm not sure that I could.
Right.
I'm not sure that I could. Where would I begin? I think I would probably begin with kids, right? That moment, I was like, remember that, because it's a visual that people can understand and can see, right?
Right.
But in terms of like, and I think about the time that from the time I got here and the time I stopped, it wasn't that long, but goodness gracious, do I have a lot of memories? Like, how did all of this happen in like a year or two? But I don't think I could. I've tried incorporating it into some sort of writing, and I certainly talk about it like with Sarah or Sienna, but that's it, kind of people that know, because I don't think that I could. How about you?
You know me, I'm always trying to quantify things and explain it, and then trying to like help people understanding. And I've made an attempt a few times, mostly in therapy.
That's a good place to start.
To explain what it was like, but usually what I find myself doing is the moment I start explaining it, I start going into euphoric recall, and then all the good memories come, right? And then I'm like, you have that moment, you're like, oh, that was a good party, and then you remember what happened after the party, and I'm like, God, I'm glad I don't live like that anymore. There are some moments. From my side of the table, there are so many moments like that, and I just want to thank you publicly for always remaining my friend in spite of
no. Thank you for remaining my friend.
So let's get into some of this, right? So you came to New York. Brass Monkey is the first party. Tell me about arriving in New York and starting to live in New York City at that age. What was it like for you?
It was, I think I was too naive to really understand, right? I just had this wish and desire, and like in all things, I decide and then I do it and kind of figure it out later, right? And I moved here with Sarah and another girl from college, so we all had jobs, so we just started getting into a routine, and my friend Sarah, we became friends because I saw a bunch of like Rave posters. Remember the posters on her door at college? Right. And I introduced myself, also something I don't normally do. And now she's like my soulmate. So I'm glad I did. She's glad too. It's mutual. You went to that apartment. It was...
No, don't do that. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're just joining in, this is my good friend Gillian. We're recapping. She's the first installment of my old school New York mini docu that I'm doing here, and she was so gracious to share my time. We're talking about back in the day, but we're going to get current and talk about her journey, as it were. As long as Gillian doesn't throw up any defenses, I'll just skate through them if she tries to do that. But that apartment in Queens, I recall, again, from our vantage point, from a bunch of skater, hippie, dirty, raving punks, I was like, man, this is like the house of opulence. This is immaculate. I've never seen anything like this. There's food in the inside the refrigerator. There's coffee. I remember the first time you let Hour and I crash there, and I was like, dude, we should probably leave, right? And you and Sarah were like, hey, would you guys like some breakfast? And I'm like, holy smokes, they got food. And that's like, you were always
my memory is the opposite. the only reason it was like that to Sarah's credit is Sarah. She drives a very tight, runs a very tight ship in that regard. It must be clean. It must have food. It must have chocolate and coffee. So we can thank her for my adult pretentiousness, if you will.
No, it was I mean, we benefited and we thank you on behalf of all the dirty bums that you guys allowed to come
No,
over after that
you
party.
guys
We
are all, you
appreciate
guys are our friends. It wasn't even like
it. So
that.
you're a young lady. You're living in New York, man. You're already well traveled. So it's not like you're not used to a metropolitan. You lived in London. You lived in Chicago. Was there a different type of aura though arriving in New York?
Absolutely.
Can
There's
you
just
describe?
rawness here. There's a soul. Like Chicago's got a bit of a soul. And I didn't live in London. I lived in Cambridge, which was like 2 hours north. And I was a sleepy little college town, University of Cambridge. But in London, I was so young, I can't say that I can compare it. Maybe if I were to go back now, I'd have a better comparison. But New York just to me has a soul. It's got a heartbeat. It's got a pulse. And I found that pulse through parties through raves. And that was kind of the gateway into finding the rest of the various veins through which that pulse runs in New York. And it's just like, there's something for everybody here. If you look, sometimes it's hard. You got to look a little harder. Sometimes it's not that hard to find, but and we did, at the beginning, we tried to take advantage of all as much as we could. We would drag ourselves to museums and then we would go to see Mozart. I remember one night, the three of us went to go see Mozart at the Met. And then we got back and we're like, we're not going to go out anymore. We're not going to go to parties. And then we got back and Sarah's doing this thing where she shakes her leg uncontrollably. And we're like, we can't do this. And we went out, we met you guys probably. So, it was just that range and that one night. And we were so young, I was probably barely 21 and she was 21, 22. And it's kind of, been like that for me ever since. It's like whatever range, whatever you want, it's all here. And maybe London would have that now that I'm older. But there's nowhere like it in the world, right? There's nowhere like New York.
No, especially not the era we were coming up through, because I've lived in Chicago and I've lived in Los Angeles, and I remember I was that crotchety New Yorker in North Hollywood. They're best spots. I'm taking a shot at all of you people in LA. I went out there and I went to your best hangouts and I was like, this is trash. There's no soul here. It's all.
There's no soul.
I mean, you're fine people, and if you're donators to the show, I want to be clear. I want you to continue to donate.
Yes, we love LA.
Which really sucks. The whole thing is horrible. But the era when we were coming up in New York, it really was like the open universe was a train ride away, and then you start making friends, and it's just like it becomes bigger. Like, I gotta be real with you, I can't remember if it was you or Audrey, but that was the first time I'd ever been to Queens in my entire life, and I remember coming out there and I was
could have been Audrey.
Yeah, I'm like, I didn't know.
That's crazy.
I thought Manhattan was New York. I was like, what are these strange places? So you guys tried to stop partying. I know you got the itch you're just describing. I know that itch very well.
So what did you say? No, go ahead.
Well, I was going to ask, what made you go to parties? Because it was good. Then I think there was a middle point we all experienced, and then there was the end. So let's talk about the middle point. What kept you going?
It was fun. We had our group. Mm-hmm. We had a good crew, and I felt I'd never met anyone like you guys in my life. I was traveled, and I'd met, just the regular university types or, people through my family, but just you guys were just other larger than life in my eyes. And just the way you spoke, the way you kind of walked and moved and danced, all these things. And so it was, sorry to say, it was a bit of a fascination, and a kind of anthropological study, now that I can say that at 2020 hindsight. But, and I found I would look at parties in that way. I would observe a lot, and in the music and the fun and the friends, it's where I didn't, people at work were a little dull. And then I had a few college friends, and we just found what we loved. And, I still try to unpack because I still I go dancing on Saturday. I come home a little earlier, but, I still do that. And I've realized over time that maybe I realized then, but I couldn't put words to it. It's taken me, 20 plus years to put words to it, but it's like a form of meditation if you will. It's like this form, just the dancing where your flow, I think is like a trendy word right now, where you're just letting go and you're present and you're in the moment and you and the loud music, and there's nothing else. And, I could relate that to why I climb mountains as well. It's the same
Right.
thing. You are present, you are very present, and there's nothing else. And there's a release in that where you come out on the other side. You come out a little different, whether you learn something about somebody, you learn something about yourself, you have some realization at some weird hour of the night. There was always a little tweak to your life after each event. And I think that was probably, in hindsight, I didn't realize that at the time, that what kept me going back. And, the friendships, it was so magical. I hate to use that word, but I don't know what else word to use, because it was magical time for sure.
Yo, you just said all of that, and it hit me in the heart, and I was just awash with memories right now, because actually this isn't the first time you said in regards to studying it, and like in in regards to sociology. I remember we had a conversation, and you were the person that kind of put me on to, hey, have you ever noticed that there are tribes in this scene? And I was like, whoa, what are you saying right now? You like, there's the hardcore tribe, there's the jungle tribe, and Sully was there, and he was like, oh, and our minds were blown.
Oh, wow, I really was. See, that was like me trying to understand myself, but actually I wasn't I?
Yeah, you were holding, actually, if I remember correctly, you were the one who taught me how to hold court. Now, it's history will, in your mind, will try to switch this around.
I'm sure it's symbiotic in some way.
But I remember you sitting there, and we were all just chilling after a party, and you were just breaking down to us and doing a kind of a compare and contrast, and I was just like, wow, I had not noticed that. I didn't notice that we broke off into groups. We would all arrive to the party together. I would scurry through to the hardcore scene, come back and check on you guys in a little bit. Mm-hmm. You and Sully and like Sienna would stay, and Sienna started to break off into like house music and stuff as well. But Becca would, and then of course, then we had Jimmy, who is still in my mind. And I say this with the utmost respect. He was an oddity in the rave scene, whereas that he was allowed in many different ways to travel wherever he wanted. And I always worried about his safety, and I'm like, but he was
always okay.
everywhere he went, he was good. Let's talk about, and this is something I've had to work through. Let's talk about some of the shadiness. I know that it was beautiful. From my vantage point, it was so beautiful. And I think one of the things that used to trip me up when we were all so deep into it, for me, just speaking about me, there was a duality, right? Like, because I always wanted to have fun with you guys, but I was always exposed to the other side. And I think in a delusional state, I thought it was my responsibility to protect everyone.
You did. Well, you did a good job, because I don't have that same experience, I know there were things that you would tell me, and I'm like, where? I don't see it. So, between you and Jimmy and Sully, sometimes, you guys really did shield us from stuff, so to speak. So thank you.
No, I didn't do that great of a job for everyone, but from your vantage point, because I try to track it. I'm like, when did things start to go south? Like, so I do a little comparison myself. Have you ever seen a movie called Joy Division before? All right, so it's about a great band that I love called not Joy Division, Party People, and it's about Joy Division, and it tracks the Manchester scene, right? And I remember sitting there watching this movie where in the Manchester scene, where Joy Division, a few other bands from England were really blowing up. They were coming in after the wine of the Beatles, and England was trying to reestablish itself, and they would give birth to the scene that the Clash and the Sex Pistols would take over. And there was this one point in the movie where the person narrating it is like, and this is the exact moment everything started to go bad, and it was like the best party and the best performance they had all experienced. For me, that party was 2000. I can't remember the name of it, but we were all somewhere for a New Year's party, and it hit this crescendo, and I was like, it will never be this good again. And then it just started to go down, and I think that was mostly because we were all just starting to grow up. Like, you were already starting to move into your real life profession. And I just remember hearing you say things. And I'm like, you're doing what? Monday?
What year was that? Oh yeah. What's a Monday?
What I guess the question made short is, at what point do you think you started to mature out?
Oh, well, let's see. How old am I? I was this day old when I realized.
Or are you even able to mark it? Because was there a point
Well,
where
I had a forced exit, if you recall.
Yes.
So that was, I can't say that I matured out of it. There was a forced exit. But I think I remember that party. Did we go to an apartment?
Yes.
That night?
Yes.
Yeah, that was the night where I thought, what am I doing?
Yes. 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 It was
and I felt like I'm in this new city and these are my friends, but I don't know you that well, you know?
Yeah.
But I mean, we kept going after that, but then soon after, I think I might've come close to a forced exit. And so I exited because I had to, you know, I became a mom, and then shortly thereafter a single mom, and stayed away. And, you know, when she started to have sleepovers, I would kind of go out, but by then everything that we knew was gone, right? It was different, and it turned into something different. Even today, it's just something weird and different. It's not the same.
That's when Gillian became, folks, if you're just tuning in, I'm catching up with my good friend Gillian. We're talking about old school New York, her journey, our shared experience, and I'm about to hit her with another compliment. When you became a mom, this is where you from our vantage point, and it's always I want to see how this resonates with you. You took on another level of maturity at that point that was just mind blowing to us. I'm like, what? She's having a baby? And then I just remember I was completely baffled if I didn't know how babies came to be, and I'm like, wait, she's having a baby. And then when the baby was there, when she came, I remember you met us in Brooklyn, and I was getting ready to leave. I think I was leaving for the first time to LA, and I met up with you in Brooklyn, and we did a day party, and I was just completely taken back. I was like, wow, this is my friend. And I knew in that moment, I was like, I might never see her again. This is the last, and that was the last time I saw you until I came back to visit, because it was obvious to me. I'm like, her life has changed drastically and she's about to move on. If you don't mind sharing, because now I just want to get into your story. What was it like with baby, who shall not be named, but said, yo, I was there. The baby stood up in the crib and said, yo.
She's still a character.
What was that journey like, moving into single motherhood?
So, you know, it just what you were saying about the vantage point. I'm sorry, my glasses, I keep noticing that they're crooked. I can't figure it out. Okay. I saw a picture of P and I, we'll call it wing color, or XYQZ, baby Gillian and I, when she was first born, and I thought, oh, this is why everybody was so concerned. I am a baby. I'm a baby. No wonder. You know, again, like in all things in my life, there isn't a lot of forethought or contemplation. I just do, and I figure it out, and you rise to the occasion. You know, you'd be surprised. I mean, you know, we all have moments in our life where you can choose which way you're going to go. And, you know, if you've got any kind of fight in you, you're going to rise to the occasion, right? Which we all had a tremendous amount of, right?
Right.
I have to say that the scene, that's my dog, probably made me resilient in that regard, and at least partly. It's hard to quantify what it's like to be a single mom in New York City, because it's hard. I have yet to find somebody I can genuinely talk to, who's kind of had a similar experience where just the father is completely absent. You know, I'm working these crazy Wall Street jobs. At one point I was going to graduate school at night, and, you know, it's definitely, you have a lot of energy when you're young. So I'm glad I did that when I was young. I can't imagine doing that all now. I'm just so tired all the time.
Except for on Saturdays, folks. Except for on Saturdays.
Yeah. No, totally. And even then, it's like I gotta give myself a pep talk. I'm good enough. I'm smart enough. I can do this. Smart. Gosh darn it, people like me. You know the reference. You're our age.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, it's hard to. It was really hard, and I don't think that I realized how hard it was until I was kind of out of it and I had a moment to breathe. And she was a little bit older, and I thought, damn, that was hard. All the things that I did, and for her and for us, and to keep ourselves afloat financially, emotionally, mentally. And I was like, nobody really understands. And that was a bit frustrating because I'm like, nobody really understands. And I don't think I could possibly express it to anyone. I have no family in this city. I received no support from him. But you, like anything, you rise to the occasion. And the relationship that I have with her now is just unbreakable, and it's close, which makes it difficult sometimes, right? But not without just all the beauty in the world. And she's my raison d'être, my reason to be. And I don't think I would have that had I not had that experience. And 1,000%, like, I am 10,000,000% the person that I am because I went through that with her, and that I am eternally grateful for, albeit very hard.
You know what? Okay, I promised myself I wasn't going to do this, but the apologies, like, I remember thinking, like, I wish there was something I could do. You know what I'm saying? I wish there was something I could do to be no, real talk, man. Like, I'm not going to go deep into our conversations, of which we've had many, but I just remember wanting to, like, everything was a scheme for me back then. And I just was like, maybe I can get her some money. Maybe I can do this. Maybe I can do that to help out. And I remember watching some of the ladies in our group try to rally around you, but I could tell up until the day we left Brooklyn, like, she feels isolated, and there's nothing we can do to step in there to.
I appreciated the company, you guys just coming around when you did. And that was kind of because I was working, and then I pick her up from daycare, and then I would come home. So I was by myself. So, I remember at one point, all the girls, they came with me. We went to like a diner, and then we went to a park, and there were like 6 ravers, like pushing baby Gillian, on the swing. I was like, how many ravers does it take to push a baby on a swing? 6, apparently.
Yo, they were so protective of you back then. I'm not going to get into all of it, but, like, let me just say this. The word was out, right? For guys that were, like, floating around your orbit, like castration.
Again, you did a really good job. I had no idea.
No. This wasn't me. This goes out. I put the word out in a different way. Like, but the ladies, Sienna, Becca, Sarah, I can't remember the other sister.
Jasmine.
Yes. No, not Jasmine. Someone else, but Jasmine too. And I remember any guy that tried to break into your little orbit, maybe because they saw you out dancing, they just knew that no.
Well, again, y'all did a really good job because I had no idea. This is the first I'm hearing of this.
I'm sorry, I cut you off. So then,
no, I was done. No, I was done rambling.
No, you're not rambling because the funny thing about it is, like, to watch you persevere throughout that grad school, doing the things that you did. So let's talk about a little bit of where you went to after grad school. You can't talk about where you work. That's all, folks.
Well, I can talk about where I used to work. I just can't.
Tell us where your career path led you. What did you?
So I thought. So when I got here, I'll say I worked for a law firm. I was like an analyst or whatever they call it nowadays. Again, my glasses. And the idea was that I was going to go to law school. But life had different ideas for me, and I went with that flow. And so I ended up then working for.
They're fine, Gillian. They're fine.
It's bothering me. Sorry. Sorry. It's probably more annoying me doing that. You'd rather just look at crooked glasses. Then I went to an investment bank and kind of parlayed my skills into a kind of know your client type role. And then I just started asking a lot of questions, and I worked with a lot of lawyers. And then just kind of used all that skill. And it was a time where they were allowing non-lawyers to do lawyerly things like negotiate contracts for different for financial products such as swaps, derivatives, repurchase transactions, securities, lending, and futures and options and all these things. So I just started asking a lot of questions, and then landed myself a role doing that as a non-lawyer, kind of like a physician's assistant, who can do all the things a doctor can do, but doesn't have the doctor part of it. And so that's kind of where I started. And my career path meandered to different banks, doing different things, all within the capacity of, like I said, just risk management, which is pretty ironic. I tell that to my parents these days and they laugh hysterically. They're like, you are managing risk. I said, who better to manage your risk than a risk taker?
Exactly. You had to have been there. You don't know what risks are.
Exactly. I know what's up. You don't want somebody who's lived, in their mom's basement managing your risks. They don't know what risk is, right? I do. I know. Taking a few of them.
There's someone out here is going to watch that and be like, was that a shot at me? No, she's not talking about that. It's a joke.
I'm sorry. No, I just meant somebody who hadn't experienced much and did not take risks. That's right. And I paraphrase poorly. My parents have a great basement.
Listen, there is some great finished. I'm in my own finished basement right now. I'm shoved down here. I love it. Thank you, babe, for this gift that I call my little studio. But you've done so much, man. Like, so I keep up with you on IG, and you're one of I put you in my adventurer friends category. Like, I see you climbing mountains, you're spelunking. So you went from going to dangerous raves with dangerous people whilst having a good time to now risking your life climbing mountains. How did we get there?
Yeah, that's another interesting story and question that I've yet to fully answer, but I'll try.
Okay.
So I grew up in Costa Rica, and I grew up in San Jose, which is the capital, and it's in a valley. So mountains were just there all the time. I went to school in the mountains. We had to drive the mountains for me to go to gymnastics. We had to, drive over them to get to the beach. They were just there. We would do school field trips into rainforests in the mountains. They were, like I said, they were always there, and I just took them for granted that it was something that, of course, everybody has mountains, right? No, not everybody has mountains. And then I kind of forgot about them. I became very New York. I drove a nice car, and I wore, red soled shoes, and I lived that whole, New York city life as a single mom. And then I took Penelope. I took my daughter. It's okay. It's okay. I took her to Peru when she was 6, and we took the funicular up to Cusco, up to Machu Picchu from Cusco, and I saw we turned this corner, and then the Andes just jettisoned up, and I saw them, and I had this emotional reaction that I didn't understand. I started to cry. I'd never seen something so glorious and so magnificent, and it was just this visceral thing. So I didn't know what that was, but I left it there because I was still, who I was at the time. I showed up to Machu Picchu, pouring rain in a juicy velour, tracksuit. So, that was my level of understanding at the time.
Great flex.
Yeah, total flex, but very poor choice, very poor choice of clothing. And then my friend, I work with my friend. I'm on the board of a small international nonprofit, and she did a climb of Kilimanjaro maybe 10 or so years ago, and she told me about it, and I was like, yeah, whatever. But again, it kind of planted, like kids, it kind of planted this, it went in, and I didn't realize where it had seeped until later. And then my friend went to South Africa and sent me a picture of Table Mountain. Again, that same reaction that I can't explain. And I was like, I've got to do something. And I was like, well, what's the logical thing to do? Climb Kilimanjaro with your 14-year-old, right? So I did. And she didn't talk to me for 2 weeks after that, but she did it.
Was that out of terror or?
Yeah, no, she was coming into herself. She's very Brooklyn. She had nails. She was very, beautiful young lady. And then I took her on a mountain for a week, in the middle of Africa. So, and then that was it. And so I climbed. She didn't come with me on the final, what's called summit push, where you go from high camp up to the summit. And it was a very grueling 7 hours in the dark. But I did it. And then the way down back to the high camp where my daughter, was sleeping blissfully. you have to like ski down rock for like 2 hours. And the entire time I'm going, not to fudge this crap. In other words, fudge it, just literally repeating that phrase for 2-3 hours on the way down. And then I got to her in her tent and I thought, I want to do this forever. This is the best thing ever. This is what I want to do. So, you see the pattern here, right? Like I have this one experience. I'm not sure about it. And then I'm like committed. And then I've done it ever since. And so that's the kind of physical aspect. And like I said, similar to the dancing, it just drew me because it was that form of meditation. And being a single mom in the city, it has been very hard. And I can just let go and focus on literally putting one foot in front of the other. And I also, in my more poetic sense, I was like, well, this is a physical manifestation of the hardships that I've had to go through as a mother, climbing a mountain. That idea kind of flatlined. But I've stuck with the idea that it's meditative. And that's why it just keeps calling me. I hate to use that word because it's so cheesy, but I don't know what else to say. And so that was 2016. So I'm a bit of a late bloomer in that regard. A lot of people kind of grow up around mountains and start climbing young. I didn't figure this out about myself until 2016. But again, in Costa Rica, I was always like climbing trees, jumping off trees, doing all these crazy things outside. So it seems like a natural progression now that I'm looking at it over time.
I mean, now that you tie the two things together, I can see the intersection there where it's like you had this amazing moment but I wish you don't make it sound like it was like just this thing. Like it is kind of representative of what you went through as a single mother. Like you climbed this huge mountain. I don't know if you recognize like what you were able to do with the mountain and as a mom. And that's another reason why I asked you to come on the show. I know you do advocacy work, but there was a bit of advocacy I wanted to ask you. What encouragement could you impart to other single mothers, specifically younger single mothers who right now might be experiencing what you felt when baby P first joined us?
Trust yourself, and things are not going to be perfect, and that's okay because you're playing the long game. You're playing the long game, and stay close to your child. Stay close. And something I wish I would have known when I was younger is that when things get really hard, it's okay to take a step back and breathe, literally breathe. And I meditate every day now, and I wish I had discovered it sooner. So that's actually another piece of advice I would give young mothers is find a meditation app that works for you and do it religiously. It's magic. It's magic because there's a lot of hard moments that test you. That test your patience, and you're tired and you don't know what's wrong and you want to fix it and you can't. And so just that breather helps you put space between your reaction and what's happening in front of you. And I wish I would have known that younger. The other thing is don't beat yourself up. Do not waste time beating yourself up of how maybe you should have done something better. And I did that for a lot of years, and it doesn't help anyone because eventually that kind of rubs off on your kid, and you don't want to see them make that decision for themselves because you love them and you want them to love yourself. So model the behavior that you want your kids to have, even in your own mind, because it does come out eventually.
I mean, that's just good advice for parents in general, man. I stand at the precipice with my wife. I never thought I would be the useless dad. I try to do as much as I can, but right now all three boys are clinging to my poor wife. They're on her, and I'm just like, what can I do to help? And I feel for mothers. Let me just put it that way. Like my aloof cavalier face doesn't mean I don't care. It's just like I literally feel for mothers. But let's talk about your advocacy work. If you're just coming in right now, I'm catching up with my good friend Gillian, house dancer extraordinaire, spelunker, adventurer, slayer of fools in the New York scene as well. I've had to deal with a few guys that she dated with. I'm like, bro, I don't know why she's not calling you anymore. Just, it's time to move on, man. I don't know how you got my phone number, but please. Let's talk about the advocacy work. Tell us about it. Tell us about being an advocate.
So it started at several jobs ago. I didn't mean for it to become advocacy work. I went to this like event that was run by the Women's Network at Barclays, and they had a panel on something. And again, I saw, it's just so mundane. I saw this girl like holding a microphone to give it to people in the audience to ask questions. And I never attended anything like that. And I was like, oh my gosh, I want to do that. I want to hold a microphone. So I worked with a woman who was kind of heading some part of it. And I was relentless. I just would not let go until she's like, fine, you can come and join us for this. And I was like COO of one of the like streams in the let's call it a women's network. Now we're calling it like gender balance network, I guess, these days. But for ease of conversation, we'll call it the women's network. Probably get shot for that later, but it's like one of those things people find online later and they ding you for. But and then it just kind of grew, and the more it's like sometimes you got to change from the outside in, right? And so the more involved I became, the more I realized, wow, there is such a need for this group. There is a need for us to coalesce, to make our voices heard, and that can only be heard collectively. And you can do things and ask things and say things that you only do from the platform of the group, that you can't do as an individual. And I had grown up in a bit of a microcosm where my dad was, I guess, let's call him a feminist, who was always building up my sister. And I went to a women's college where everyone told us we were all queens and the best thing since sliced bread. And then I came out into the real world and I'm kind of going, and then I got to Barclays. I was like, whoa, patriarchy is real. It is real. It is alive, and it is present, and it's ruining my life. So I'm going to be a part of its deconstruction.
Right.
And the way that I did that was through, running these programs and events, and let's call it education. But in my head, I was calling it, we are brainwashing people as to why this is important. And it was very much like Field of Dreams, build these events, build these programs, and then people will come and join. And sure enough, I was instrumental in growing, my portion of the network from like 200 to like 1,500 by the time I left. And it was all because we all saw the need to advocate for one another and advocate for those coming after us. And that was a big part of my charge at Barclays, was advocating for the younger women. And I believe in stewardship. I believe in leaving the world or whatever space that you occupy better than when you found it. And so that was part of, and that just comes from, my upbringing. My parents were missionaries. I went to Wellesley, where our motto was sed ministeri, non ministeri, not to serve, but not to be served, but to serve. Mm-hmm. And so it all, that's the running theme. And then that advocacy for those around me, then at HSBC turned into advocacy for, younger women. We partnered up with Girls Inc. and ran a year-long mentorship program. And again, it was born of kind of, I literally wrote it down on a napkin, chicken scratch, like probably on the subway. And I was just like, what are the things I wish I would have known? What are the things I wish somebody would have told me 20 years ago? And thus it was born. And they ended up taking the program and rolling it out with other banks. Thanks, guys. But that's a testament to the success of it, is that when people copy you, right? So I was, a little perturbed, but also happy to see you in my heart of hearts, really.
This is a good thing, but
and I've always just had a kind of caring instinct. And so, my daughter was getting older. So I was like, I need somebody to care for her. That's making it base, but it's just, I give, and that it's all of this is an extension of that. And because it's the right thing to do. And we all, do unto others, I guess, is another thing. And if you have the opportunity to do that for somebody, I think it's our duty as humans to do that. So that's why I did it.
That's what I was trying to capture in hanging out with you back in the day. I remember that your parents were missionaries, and that's just this portion that you brought up, the stewardship and being a carer and a giver. That's who you were even then, dude. Mm-hmm. Like, you definitely were the person who it just kind of came off you. You can tell when someone's faking it, right? You can tell when someone's trying to be that person that's charitable, and that's okay, because I believe in, cognitive behavior change. fake it until you make it, right? You want to be charitable, do charitable things.
Right,
but
right.
It always came off of you. Let me ask you this question though. So you do have a young daughter living in this climate, living in this world right now. I hate to take the interview to a dark place, but I got to ask, what are some of the fears that you have for your daughter in the world she's living in right now?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. And so it's like she's in college, and the knowledge that I've tried to prepare her for. So, and then the knowledge that university is giving her, the skills that I think it's going to be a new world. I think things are going to operate differently. And I don't, whether it be from environmental catastrophe to, a slippage of women's rights as we're experiencing right now. And that she's not prepared enough for that. But I guess that's every parent's fear, right? We do our best to prepare our kids, but there's always going to be some, third party coming in with some, chaos, right? That you can't possibly control for or prepare your kid for. So I think that, not to say that it keeps me up at night, but part of my stewardship was like, well, this is my kind of attempt to control that unknown that I have for her, and maybe her world won't cross mine, but at least I'm pushing in my part of it so that she has it maybe a little easier than my generation as a woman, as a young lady. The environmental catastrophe and the erosion of rights is probably my biggest fear, like right now. And that's probably just because of what happened today. But, how do you prepare for that other than, I'd like to take her to like zombie apocalypse, camp or something. And I've taught her to like trade and save. So there's that. But I'm like, that's not going to be useful. So we'll talk about bartering in the next chapter. But I just, I don't know. I'd love to hear your answer too, because I don't know.
I'm telling you, in all honesty, man, I'm always a person that's always just, it's been my lot in life where I see the darkness like around every corner, which is why I love my wife so much. She's like, stop being so gloom and doom. And I'm just like, no, you don't understand. It's any day now. It's going to happen, babe, any day. And when I think about the world my sons are going to grow up in, the only thing I can really say is the same exact thing you said, which is I try to prepare them as best they can. But then I have to remember they're babies still. I'm trying to have like real weighty conversations with my eldest son. And he's like, so we're not playing video games? Is that what's happening? Are you
Keep
making
going.
this about you?
Because you'll get the return later. You'll get the return. You will. And a little repetition never did anybody harm. So I find that.
What was the first real conversation you had with Baby P?
Goodness, we had lots because it was always just the two of us. But the first one I always like to tell is I would take her to, it was like daycare, I guess. It wasn't even preschool at the time. I think she was like she's 2, not even 3. And I would take her on the subway with her stroller, and she would cry because she wouldn't want me to leave. I was working at Goldman at the time. I'm like, I gotta go. So we were in the stroller, and she goes to me and she goes, Mom. And I at the time I was like teaching like kindergartners through junior achievement, like basic economics. So I developed this like vernacular of, you have to go to work to get money to buy the things you need and want. And so I'd said things like that to her a lot. And then in her little like 2-year-old brain, she goes, one day she wasn't crying for the first time. She goes, Mom, I get it. You have to go to work to buy money so that we can have a house and food. I said, yes, labor market. That is it. You're absolutely right. And so, it's a bit humorous, but my point is that she was very young, and I had started rolling these ideas around in her head, and she internalized them a lot sooner than I realized in her own time, and then spat them back to me. So, I mean, they're listening even when you don't think they're listening. And
no, they're not listening to me.
Okay. All right.
They're definitely listening to their mom.
No, I'm sure they are. And before you realize, yeah. and just that you're conscious of that, you're going to be fine.
Before we wrap it up, I just want to ask you, So let's land here, right? If you can go back in time, if you can, I just want to take you in a time machine right now. If you can go back in time to any party and just relive that moment, if you can recall it. I know I'm asking a lot. What party would it be and what moment would it be?
Oh, I got one for you.
Oh, wow. That was quick.
Because I thought about this one too. Okay. And I don't know if you're going to like this.
Wait, is it going to incriminate me in any way, shape, or form? Because the statute of limitations is not up on some of that stuff.
No, it does not incriminate you. It's because I don't know what happened. Okay. But I'm going to tell you, again, point of view.
Okay.
Where I sit, this is what happened. And I think the only reason I want to go back because I want to know what happened.
Okay. Okay.
We were in Asbury Park. No? Asbury Park.
I've had a few moments in Asbury Park.
Jersey Shore. No, right. So it was the night that KRS-One showed up.
Oh. You're wondering why I disappeared from a party for 4 hours.
I know why you disappeared.
Okay.
but I don't know exactly why. I just know you were there. And I so it's a mall now, right? Like it's a mall. And I was like looking up at the banister. I was like, that's the corner where I realized I lost him.
So
and then you came back.
Yeah.
Hours later, and you were missing 1 or 2 shoes.
Yeah, I was missing my shoelaces. Oh, it was
your shoelaces.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I can talk about that one because that was actually.
I was just impressed that you were back. I could have sworn it was 1 shoe that was missing. Just your laces?
I might have lost a shoe, and the reason that it could have been either or. I remember. I think it was my shoelaces, and I can tell you why. So this is what happened. That night, I had overstepped. Right, I had overstepped, and I had done this a lot when we would go out. And I'm just going to use some coded language. We were in a different place, and my juice and my clout didn't carry over in that place. And I had been warned by multiple locals to exit the party, and in usual fashion, I was already on the outs with the group I was with, whose name I'm not going to big up because I don't want to be tied to that. I was on the outs with them. I was on the outs with those guys, and they were already, whether they admit it publicly or not, they were already plotting on getting me. This is after I had taken that beating in Kew Gardens, and I was already going through a life change. For the chat, I didn't get jumped that night. I had taken a pretty severe beating in Kew Gardens, myself, my friend Auer, and my friend Dijon. But I got put in the hospital behind it, and it was behind some pretty serious situation. And I believe some of that overlapped that night. But instead of it turning into fisticuffs, someone sent an undercover in my direction, and they pulled me out of the party. I can't talk about the rest on air, but I will most certainly fill you in because it was pretty crazy. It was pretty crazy, and I remember making it back to the party, thinking to myself like, that might have been one of the. I say this all the time. I don't know when it should have been Kew Gardens when I nearly got beat to death. That should have been the wake up call, but that was another wake up call because I dealt with the ramifications of that moment for years after that. Even when I moved to LA, like anytime I got into any trouble, that, it always went right back there. So, all right, I'll tell you, someone snitched on me. And they sent the cops my way, and they took me out. And then they took me to, the precinct, and they were grilling me and like 6 other kids. And I remember it wasn't my proudest moment, but I remember being in the situation it was like 6 kids that I had beef with, and I'm like, this is as bad as it can get, like this. And I kept thinking to myself, if I, and it sounds cheesy, Gillian, I literally pray like if I could find a way not to get killed right now, get back to the party, get my money from the person who's holding like $1,000 for me, and make it back to New York safely, I would be so happy. And that actually happened. And that's the part where I don't want to make this a narcissist thing. This is where I always felt bad hanging out with you guys, because it was like I was either always really happy or I was always really in danger. or like,
Again, good job shielding us.
you were one of the people that like you shielded me actually. And I before we wrap it up, I want to give you your full props. You're not going to recall this night, I'm sure, but we were all hanging out at Sully's house and we were talking about politics and all this stuff. And as far as I can tell, the first person that gave me a real good push to consider being more than what I was a conversation, multiple conversations I'd had with you. And I remember talking like saying like, hey, I wish I could do something where I could just talk about facts with people and just be able to have these conversations. And I was trying to explain to you that I would want to create a website called Penny for Your Thought, where we basically went around and did research for, research and like, disprove things and stuff like that. And a lot of that came, most of it came from conversations I had with you. You were always someone trying to elevate all of us, you, Sienna, and I can't thank you enough. I thought you were going to ask me about another party where I'll tell you this, your boy Jimmy is the reason that a lot of stuff, he spoke up on my behalf more than a few times, and you spoke up on his behalf because I didn't always. So that's all inside baseball talk.
Just you were such a, like I told you before, you were such a conversationalist and you could tell these stories and go on. And it was like mesmerizing. So you were hilarious and you were clever and you would go on, and then you would bring it back to a point. And you would think, oh, he's gone off the rails with this one. Nope. You would bring it back to the theme and the point and your vocabulary. I learned words from you. So
that's all that good New York City public school.
Yes, all that doesn't body good. But so I wanted to see you do more with your mind than what you were doing at that time, and I'm very, very happy to see that you are.
I'm happy to see that you are. I mean, there were times where I worried that it would all like swallow you up. When before baby P came along, I remember like being like, I can't be around. Like I didn't meet said individual, but I think we might have like in passing or something like that. And I think this might have been the only disagreement I recall having with you is I was just like, yes, this was our only disagreement, which I'm about to talk about. I remember saying that like, I'm your friend. I don't think it's, good that I'm around when this guy's around. And I remember you being like, well, that sounds like a really not friend. And I was just like, no, it's not like that. It's like, I'm not going to add anything positive to this situation.
Right.
I remember Sully gave me a tongue lashing about it and everyone gave me a tongue lashing. I was just like, no, like the last thing she needs in her life is her idiot friend attacking the father of her child. Like she needs peace.
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, anyways, that's another topic. That's another topic. But I think that was the mature decision. There was a lot that was kind of unspoken or unseen, that I kept from you guys. So I think that was, I don't know, who knows, yeah. But it was a difficult time. And thank you for being there. Thank you. And thank you for being thoughtful when I was like, what? Wow. But maybe you saw what I didn't see. So
yeah, I was a scumbag back then, so I could recognize other scumbags. And as much as you're going to say, no, you weren't. I wasn't around you guys. But when I saw my own kind, I would just be like, I'll take these bracelets off. I know you. I see you and you know that I see you. So stay far away. Gillian, this has been therapeutic.
Oh, likewise, my friend. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on. I know this is not your normal style.
No, it is not. But thank you for drawing me out and for making me feel comfortable and like we're just back in my living room in Queens.
It was the safest place in New York City, folks, if you didn't know. Gillian, do you want to shout out anything you're working on, any advocacy groups you want to give props to, anything at all?
Oh, that would be great, actually. So I'm climbing Amadablam in the Himalayas next week. And like I mentioned, I'm a board member on a very small nonprofit, International Medical Response. And so I'm going to be raising funds I can send you the link, just
Please.
raising funds for my climb and for the general work that we do, which is, we go to high needs area. We do a lot of work on what's women's fistula. Our CEO is a surgeon. And then recently we're raising funds for partner hospital and in Ukraine and several in Kiev and Dunpro, I think. Forgive me, I'm mispronouncing that, but I can send you the link where if people are interested in learning more or becoming a part of that journey, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you for your cooperation. No, absolutely, Cindy.
No, thank you for asking. Thank you, because I again, it's.
Wait. Someone just said they're sorry they're late, but you'll probably. Do you remember Roy from the Haven? Tall fellow, bald head.
Yes.
Roy just showed up and he just said,
Hello.
right, and I'm sure he's upset that he missed us. Folks, this has been another Conversations That Matter first installment with my very special guest, Gillian, old school New York, catching up with my old friends from an amazing time. I'm going to send her out with another compliment. There is no one else that has ever done 2 backflips in a row, then landed and done the heel toe and then smile up and down. And that was a great moment too. You would bust out dance moves. And it was the first time you did it. You would just look at us and I'm like, don't look at me. I can't do that, bro.
Well, I wanted to see your reaction. I was like, yeah, you see that?
Yeah, amazing. Gillian, thank you so much.
Thank you, my friend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For everyone that's here, make sure you catch the replay. The links that Gillian was just describing for the organizations will be in the replay, and I'll make sure that's up by tomorrow. And again, if you can support, anything you can do would be greatly appreciated. I love y'all. I'll see y'all at 10 p.m. when me and DJ Sensi. Good night, folks.